Hi, I'm Amber Royer. I'm author of the upcoming Bean to Bar Mysteries, and those are going to star a chocolate maker sleuth coming in February from my personal imprint, Golden Tip Press. I started doing science fiction, and I did this entire trilogy with science fiction, space opera, and chocolate. And researching and publicizing those books, I got to meet some amazing people who are real craft chocolate makers and chocolatiers, people who do chocolate judging and tasting. And today I want to introduce you to someone from Mission Chocolate. So we have Arcelia Gallardo here, and she's going to talk about how she got into chocolate and her brand. And it's very exciting to me because part of free chocolate takes place in Brazil, and getting to have a chocolate maker's perspective on that country and what's going on with craft chocolate there is really exciting to me. So Arcelia, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah, of course. So we're at the factory right now. So there's going to be a lot of movement happening. So I am Arcelia, and my brand of chocolate is called Mission Chocolate, and we are located in São Paulo, Brazil, in a very small city of 20 million people. And we focus on making Brazilian chocolate with Brazilian flavors and Brazilian ingredients, normally that you would never find anywhere else. So we're really focused on making flavors and bars that nobody else is making, and that will introduce people into the Brazilian culture.
Okay, so what did you do before you started Mission Chocolate? How did you transition into that?
And so I actually started making chocolate working with chocolate about 17 years ago, a long time ago. But I started as a chocolatier. So my first store and company was making desserts. And I used to buy chocolate chips from Guitar Chocolate from Calibo, and I would melt them down to make bonbons and truffles and candies. And then I started to learn about the craft chocolate movement, because my store was in Berkeley in California, where Scharfenberger got started. And so being in the exact city where Bean to Bar craft chocolate began, it was very easy to find it, and it was very easy to understand, and you could go tour the factory. And so I knew there was people making chocolate, but I didn't really pay any attention to it because I thought you had to be a huge industry to be able to make chocolate. But the more I learned about it, the more I understood that I could make chocolate. So I sold my store, and I went to work with Dandelion Chocolate in San Francisco, where I learned to make chocolate. And then soon after, I decided that I needed to move to a country that was producing cocoa in order to really understand chocolate. And I moved to Brazil, and I started the brand Mission Chocolate here. So it's about 5 years old.
That's awesome. So you worked with Greg from Dandelion?
Exactly. Yeah. So chocolate makers are so young that nobody really knows how to make chocolate. And so when you start at a factory and you make chocolate, you are taught to make chocolate, right? You don't know how to make chocolate. And so because I was very curious about cacao, every time that Greg would travel to Ecuador or Belize or wherever he went, I kind of stuck along. I was like, can I come with you? Because I really wanted to understand how to purchase cacao, right? Because again, that's not something you can't go to school to learn how to buy cocoa for a chocolate factory that doesn't exist. So for me, it was really good training to be able to go with him and understand what things he looked for to buy cocoa. And so I both learned to make chocolate there, but also how to select good cocoa for good chocolate.
That's amazing. Yeah, Greg is everywhere. I was in Monterey a year ago and stopped in at a chocolate place. It was Manos de Cacao and Choco Solutions, and there was a school attached to it. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the guy who's running it. He also worked with Dandelion. And he was showing me he actually put
Yeah.
out Greg's book, and we were talking about how the guy was talking to, Jorge is an engineer, and he was making some of his own adaptations to machines, and it's just amazing how it's such a small world with craft chocolate. Do you
Yeah.
feel like
So
you
I
run into
think
the same
so.
people?
Um, I think what Jorge was trying to say. So when I was working at Dandelion, I consulted for Jorge.
Oh,
And so when
really?
he's
Very
talking about
small
working
world.
with Dandelion, it's actually me that went to Mexico to consult for him to teach him how to make chocolate.
Oh my goodness. It's a
So
super
it's a
small
lot
world.
smaller, yeah, than you even thought. And so I had actually met Jorge in 2008 in Orlando, in Florida. We both were taking classes about how to make bonbons and confection with a very famous chocolate and sugar sculptor, Ewald Notter, who has a school in Orlando. So we had met there as chocolatiers. And then years later, he contacted me and he said he was interested in making chocolate. And I, at that time, told him, well, I'm working at Dandelion and I know how to make chocolate, so I don't mind going to Mexico to teach you. So I went to Mexico to teach him. And so that's how that worked out. So it is a very small world indeed. And we all, at least in my case, love helping each other and other brands.
Yeah, that is very cool. And one of the things he kept emphasizing was working with the local university and helping the
Yeah.
growers. So is that something that you are doing in Brazil now, as far as educating the farmers? Because I know you're close to origin.
Yeah, so a lot of the work that we like to do is so the thing is that craft chocolate cannot exist as one brand, because if it's just one chocolate brand trying to convince the world to buy expensive chocolate, trying to convince farmers to produce better cocoa, it's not going to work. So in this field, really, you need a lot of people buying good quality cocoa in order for the farmer to be able to switch from bulk or commodity to fine cocoa. And then you also need consumers, right? So you need to be able to convince consumers that they should be paying 3, 4 times 5 the amount that they're paying for a Hershey's bar. And one brand can't do that. So what we like to do in this industry is we really like to work together, because even all of us together only make up like 1% of the purchasing power in the cocoa industry, which is not a lot. So even all of us working together, it's not enough, right? We need more people making good quality chocolate in order to really make an impact in the world of cocoa and chocolate. And so in Brazil, I teach classes. I teach how to make chocolate. I teach how to taste chocolate. And then with the farmers, we do a lot of evaluations. So they send us 1 kilo of cocoa, and then we make chocolate, or we do the cut test, we evaluate it, and we let them know what we think could make their cocoa better. And so we have this like revolving door, right, idea of we can't make good chocolate without good cocoa. And the farmers will not produce good cocoa unless you're paying a higher price for it. Because in Brazil, we have many buyers. So Brazil is a net importer of cocoa, like Mexico. Brazil consumes more cocoa than they produce. And so whoever is producing cocoa, they're going to sell it. They're going to have a buyer, because there's just not enough cocoa in the country. And so there's no incentive for a farmer to work harder, right, to change the way they're doing things, to sell cocoa at the same price, because there are many buyers, huge industrial buyers that will buy all of your cocoa and pay you that same day. Whereas for us, I'm saying, hey, can you work harder, make a lot of changes, and I'm going to buy 1 sack of cacao, and I'll pay you in 90 days, right? So it's kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So we need to be able to be competitive on some level, right? So in our case, because it's not quantity, it has to be what we're paying for the cocoa. So we need to pay them a lot more in order to convince them to change what they're doing. And then also, we need to convince consumers to buy our chocolate, because if we are paying higher prices for cocoa, we need to charge higher prices for chocolate. And so then we need to teach the consumer what is high quality chocolate and why should you pay for it and what are you tasting. And so a lot of education is involved in our industry, a lot. Some chocolate makers have the time to do it, others don't. Some are better at it, but it definitely is an arm that needs to be in every chocolate factory, and some people do it through tours, right? Like, you know, you've seen a lot of chocolate companies that either do virtual tours or they do real tours, and all of that is part of the education aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. The people that I've met have been so generous with their time. Jorge let me see the entire factory, spent half a day with me.
Yeah, Jorge's the best. He's one of my favorite people on earth.
Yeah, working on my book, one of the chocolate makers in the US, French Broad in North Carolina, Sander got me in touch with JL, and she actually read portions of my manuscript to make sure I was getting it right. And it's those little things that you don't know you need to know, like the idea that I had her winnowing chocolate and finishing chocolate in the same space, and she's like, no, you need a wall to keep from dust and heat and all that kind of stuff. And it was those things that make the fiction feel more realistic that I think are invaluable from talking to people who really do all of this. Which kind of brings me back to what you were talking about with fine chocolate and flavor and all of that. I'm looking at your bars, and I've learned a little bit from some of the chocolate things that I've been to recently, but there are lovely little award symbols on the bars that I have here from you guys. And one of these is from the Academy of Chocolate, and one is from the International Chocolate Awards. And I was recently interviewed with through the International Chocolate Salon, and I don't know which awards relate to what. So if I have a character, and she is a brand new baby chocolate maker, her business has been open for research purposes for mainly a year. The first book takes place at her grand opening party. So as a chocolate maker, what would her ambition be as far as trying to get recognized, and what standards and awards she'd be looking at?
Okay, yeah, you're not the only person on earth that's confused about all of these awards, because there's actually many more that you have just mentioned. So the big international two are the Academy of Chocolate, which is based out of London, and the International Chocolate Awards, which is based out of New Jersey. And so the thing is that the Academy of Chocolate was the first, and is absolutely credible. It's a good award, but the people that actually are professional chocolate tasters and have written books about chocolate, like Maricel Porcilla, which wrote the new flavor of chocolate, or the new taste of chocolate, is part of the International Chocolate Awards that are based out of New Jersey. So, and Martin Christie, which is also the other co-chair of the International Chocolate Awards, he teaches chocolate tasting classes. And so the most credible in terms of actually having, I guess, skin in the game, right? Like, you write books about chocolate, you teach classes about chocolate, would be the International Chocolate Awards based out of New Jersey. And but every country usually has their own awards as well. So the bars that you have International Chocolate Awards and Academy of Chocolate. Some that you don't have will have Brazilian only awards that are only, Brazilian brands. Peru has their own award as well. So there's a lot of countries that have their own awards. So you may see some bars that have 5 awards, and it's 5 different companies and organizations. I think the important thing to think about when you look at awards is that it's a chocolate brand that's been around for a while, right? So it's not a chocolate brand that's just popped up a year ago. So there's credibility in that. And then also it's a chocolate brand or a bar that's recognized, that someone else other than you has said that it's a good chocolate. Having said that, you don't need any awards to make good chocolate, because there are just people that don't care about it, that don't want, because you have to submit, right? It's a process. You have to submit your chocolates. You have to pay a fee to get in. And so some people may view it as you're paying for awards, although you don't win just because you submit. But there are people that just are not interested. Along those lines, I don't certify my chocolate organic or fair trade or anything because I don't believe in paying the fee to belong to that certification, right? So it's along those lines. It's just a matter of what you believe. I visit the farms myself. I know that there is no child slavery. I know that there is no pesticides and fumicides used. My cacao, the farm is certified organic, but I don't certify my chocolate because I know what it is. And I tell the story on my website, on my blog. I talk to many people to portray what I want in a cocoa. And so people generally trust me and trust that, you know, my product is high quality and organic without it having to be certified. So it's kind of along those same lines.
Yeah. So you're talking about good chocolate not necessarily having award symbols and all of that. Would you say that your favorite bar, the one that you're most proud of, is it the same one that's won the most awards, or is it kind of like a hidden gem?
Yeah, so that's a funny question because the bar that has received the most accolades and awards and attention is a bar that I don't like at all. Like I will never eat this bar ever. It is not my thing because and so that goes to show you that you know what you think is great may not be what your customers think are great. And so that actually has been a very valuable lesson for me is allowing the customers to really be part of the selection process of your new flavors. And so last week I sent through my newsletter, I let people know when I have something new going on, and I send them, whoever would like to be part of like the sample group, I will send them my like brownie mix or my caramel bar or whatever to taste and to give me feedback, because it's especially important given that I'm in a country that I'm not native to. And so culturally, flavor wise, you know, there are things that I think to be true that may not be for them. And so so I'm very careful to make sure to include customers, Brazilian customers, to helping me develop the new flavors that come out. So my favorite bar really depends on what day of the week it is and what time of the day. So, you know, I have a rice pudding white chocolate bar with cinnamon. And so if I want something sweet, that's like perfect. Like that's what I want. But I also have a dark chocolate with orange peel, with orange peels that I candy myself. And that is so bright and energetic and like reviving. So when you have it, you're like immediately, you wake up. And so it just really depends for me. But the orange bar is not awarded. It has never been awarded, and it's one of my favorites. So at the end of the day, it's right. Make what your customers want, make what you want, and don't really be following only awarded bars because they're not always going to be, you may not like it. I'm sure you've had awarded bars that you're like, why was this ever awarded? Right?
It's such a personal taste thing.
It is. It is.
So do you think being a chocolatier first has helped you develop your palate and how you combine flavors?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I spent about 5 years just making desserts, essentially understanding what flavors pair well together. And making ganaches also, because when I make like this pan de mel bar that you have, which is like there's no direct translation. Like there's no way for me to describe it to like an American or European market, but it's a bread that's spiced with cloves, aniseed, pepper. It's very aromatic, but it has chocolate. And so in Brazil, they have this as a dessert, right? And I thought, oh, that seems to me like a really easy transition to make it a chocolate bar. But But I think if I would never have had that background as a chocolatier, I would never have thought that, because a chocolate maker really sticks to like purity almost. It's cacao and it's sugar and cocoa butter, and maybe that's it. Like there really isn't a lot of there isn't really a lot of thought into what can I put in there that does not normally go in here.
Yeah.
And so I think that the reason I am such a great chocolate maker, and I think I'm a great chocolate maker, is because I have spent, thank you, so much time researching flavors and recipes. I mean, we're talking like solely dedicated on chocolate, 17 years. And before that, I was really interested in food, but I mean, to have that encyclopedia in your head of like, I like to eat caramel, how can I make a bar that tastes like a caramel, right? Like a chocolate maker normally can't come up with these ideas because they don't have that background.
So you talk about an encyclopedia of recipes. Is there a favorite cookbook that you could recommend?
It depends. So one of my favorite authors is Alice Medrick, because she focuses so much on chocolate. Bittersweet, have you heard of her books? She's also from Berkeley in California, and she has several books about cookies, desserts, but her focus has always been chocolate. And so she's really an expert in chocolate. So any Alice Medrick book for me is great. Maricel Crescia for me also, she has a new book, which is Peppers of the Americas, which is great. Before that, she had La Gran Cocina Latina. It's a book that's like this fat. I don't think I have it. No, I don't have it here, but it's literally a cookbook that's like this fat about recipes from all of Latin America. That book is really great because it's truly authentic. And I mean, you can look up desserts from Peru, desserts from Guatemala, desserts. I mean, there's no other book where you can really do this. And so for hers also. So, and I'm actually very happy that it's women chefs, right? Like that I just have happened to fall in love with. So I would highly recommend those two women.
That's amazing. Okay, so what is your philosophy when you're doing a bar that is just basic 2-ingredient, 3-ingredient bar?
Yeah, so at Dandelion, because we had access to the best cocoa in the world, coming up with recipes was very different than in Brazil. So usually if you are a person making chocolate in the country where the chocolate grows, you're not allowed to import cocoa from any other country because they protect their national cocoa. So in Dandelion, we were able to make a 70% Dominican Republic, 70% Ecuador, 70% Belize, 70% whatever. Like, you know, you just had access to the best cocoa in the world, and you were able to do 70% bars and still have this array of notes and flavors. When I moved to Brazil, I tried to do that and it flopped considerably because I just didn't have that much good cocoa to choose from. And I couldn't keep it pure. It was very complicated for me to keep my cocoa pure, just cacao and sugar, regardless of how many roasts I attempted, how many farms I tried to use. And so that's really where the idea came for Mission Chocolate to really be this company that was not like Dandelion. Like it couldn't be like Dandelion. Like I was trying to be Dandelion, but I couldn't. And I thought, well, what can't Dandelion be that I can be? And that's where I came up with, we're going to use everything that is accessible in Brazil that nobody has outside, that has access to outside. So all of these exotic fruits and nuts and flavors, let's put them in the chocolate and not focus on being pure. So I tried being a purist in the beginning and it just didn't work for me because there were so many other great brands that had access to the best cocoa in the world that were being the purest. And so I'm known, and my brand is really known for being an inclusions brand. It's nuts, it's flavors, it's seasoning, it's spices, it's, you know, anything you can think of in the chocolate.
So how do you, like for this bar, I know you're including local fruit. So how
Yeah.
do you choose that? Do you work directly with the farmers who grow the fruit as well?
So then the research for this project, which I call my biomes project, took me about 2 years. And so it was 2 years of looking for every single ingredient that represented all of Brazil and trying to see if it went well with chocolate. So it was 2 years of like disasters, of like breaking machines, of just everything you can imagine, because I was trying to figure out how to put things in chocolate that had never been put into chocolate. And so then there had to be a system, right? I had to narrow it down. So then I thought, okay, these are going to be my guidelines. So number one, the ingredients have to grow wild, so that it's not like, soy plantations. Like it's going to be wild. It's going to be good for the environment. It's going to be harvested by families and co-ops, so it serves as their income. It's going to be organic. It has to taste good, obviously, with the chocolate, and it has to be native to Brazil. And so I narrowed down the ingredients like that. So it took a lot of things out. So this one that you have, umbu is a fruit that grows in the biome that is called the Cerrado, which is kind of like a desert. And the umbu tree grows wild, and it grows kind of plums. It's like a green plum. It looks like a green plum. And people harvest the fruit and then they cook it. And then at the end, it ends up being like a tart black licorice. And so then I buy that from the cooperative. And so then the cooperative sends that to me. And so I know that there's no middleman, there's no store, there's no like I'm buying it from the cooperative that supports the families in that community that wild harvest this fruit. And it pairs wonderful with the chocolate. And so nobody in the world is putting umbu on chocolate. And so that has been my thing. Like, I don't want to put hazelnuts on chocolate, even though I love hazelnuts. And I actually just had some hazelnut chocolate that I have here for myself as a snack. But that the world doesn't need another hazelnut chocolate. There are enough hazelnut chocolates out there. So I'm going to stick to things that nobody else is making.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I can't wait to try this one. It wasn't one of the ones I got to try from the Dallas Chocolate Festival box, so I'm very excited. Tell me about, is there a philosophy behind your wrapper designs? They all seem to have a very similar aesthetic. And who is your artist? Is this a local person as well?
Yeah, so I don't actually have an artist. I am working with one person now, because what I want to do is portray nature or patterns that represent nature in the packaging. And I don't like for them to be the same. So if you actually were to buy that umbu bar again in the next few weeks, it's not going to be the same packaging. So I constantly like to keep things moving and changing, because that's nature and that's life. Like it can't be the same always. And so I don't have one artist at the moment. I get the designs from many places, many countries, but because that's becoming unrealistic and inefficient, I actually just started working with one artist, and hopefully that they will be able to reproduce all of these ideas that I have in my head for the packaging. But the packaging is meant to represent nature. It's that easy.
Yeah, awesome. So you have somebody you're going to be working with for art. Tell me about your team. How does the process work of you designing the recipes and sourcing to us getting a finished bar shipped out?
Yeah. So yeah. So we have a very small factory where we're at now, and we have a team of 6 people. And so we're all split into compartments, right? So we have someone that works just with the cocoa, with the raw cocoa, someone that helps make the chocolate, someone that helps with shipping and delivery and logistics, and then someone that is solely focused on preparing all of the inclusions, the fruits, the nuts, candying, the orange, dehydrating, the umbu, because we still do have to do some work to it when we get it. And then we have 2 people that just mold and temper and and package. And so we're all just kind of split, and we work only with small batches. So my biggest machine produces 18 kilos of chocolate a week, which is not a lot. But that means that every single batch is small and it's controlled, and nothing gets sent out of the factory before I taste it. So every morning I go into the room that has all the machines, and I have a spoon, and every morning it's like spoonful, 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 spoonful. And that I learned at Dandelion as well. Every morning we started by spoonful of chocolate. And so you were able to start to distinguish notes and flavors that way, right? So if you had a Dominican Republic, you would be like, wow, this is tart for Dominican Republic, or this is, you know, very chocolatey. And so you really started to be a better chocolate maker, because you have to, in order to be good at tasting, you have to taste every day. Like, there's just no question about it. And so the more you taste, the better you are at tasting chocolate. And so I do that here every single morning also with my staff, as we taste a lot.
So you recommend we taste lots of different chocolates?
Every day, all day long.
That's awesome. So that kind of brings me to my next question. From working in chocolate or just being around chocolate, what are some of the most interesting, most fun, coolest experiences that you've had?
You know, it really ranges, because hanging out with chocolate makers is a lot of fun. Generally, they are pretty lighthearted, fun people that are made in like phase 2 of their career, right? Like, nobody started off making chocolate. Like, they did something and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do something that's fun now and that I want to do. So they're generally happier people because they've made this choice to be in a different space. So hanging out with chocolate makers is a lot of fun. But it's 2 different sectors, right? And then the other part is traveling through Latin America. For me, working with indigenous communities, with women that don't speak English or Spanish, or, you know, they only speak their indigenous language, and I'm showing them how to make chocolate so that they can sell it, so that they can have a micro business. Like, that is pretty spectacular. So it just really depends, like, what angle you're talking at it from, right? And every day making chocolate is, I always tell my staff here when they're a little overwhelmed, I'm like, you guys, this is just chocolate. Like, we're not building NASA spaceships. Like, we shouldn't be stressed. Like, this is not an environment for stress. And so, because making chocolate every day, I mean, it's not a bad job. Like, you come to work, you taste chocolate, and you talk chocolate all day long. So there's a lot of really great experiences depending on where you are.
Yeah, the whole idea of chocolate as a passion, chocolate as a second career, that was something when I was meeting so many different people that came across as a theme. And so I did that with my chocolate maker. She started out as a physical therapist, went through some stuff herself, and decided she didn't want to see people's pain anymore. She just wanted to make people happy. And that's what she wound up doing with her chocolate. And it makes me feel good that's validated, that I'm getting some of these things spot on. I have one more question for you, and it's the one I always ask when I talk to people who are into chocolate. What is the best chocolate dessert you've ever eaten?
Oh, I've actually never thought of that. Not like the best.
Or most memorable?
Most memorable. Well, geez, I don't know. I mean, can you choose one chocolate? Could you choose one chocolate for the rest of your life? It's like asking me that question. They're all special for different reasons. You know, I've been to Paris to have eclairs, right? I've been to Austria to have the Sacher torte. I've been to Italy to have Ferrero Rocher, right? Like, so it's like I think for me, the most important thing is being close to authenticity. So that means, from what I just mentioned to being in Mexico and tasting a hot chocolate. And so anything to me that really comes from like an authentic place, like this is where it comes from, this is what it's supposed to taste like, for me is completely magical. So whether it be a truffle or a hot chocolate drink, so not necessarily a dessert, because I find how can I explain it? Like a dessert in itself that comes from a restaurant, let's say, although impressive, I feel misses a little bit of that soul that you would get from someone grinding cacao on a stone to making a drink for you. Like it's just very different. And so I wouldn't necessarily say desserts, but I would say like something made with chocolate, made from the person that handed to you from the person that actually made it from start to finish. Like that to me is pretty incredible. And it could be anything.
That is amazing. And now I want an eclair. Thank you. So where can we find your chocolate? Where can we find you on social media? Because we're going to want to know more, right?
Yeah, of course. So my website, missionchocolate.com, my Instagram, Facebook, all is Mission Chocolate. And in the US, you can find my chocolate at Ronnie Sue Chocolates in New York. She carries my full line, and barandcoco.com in Denver. And depending on where you are, there are a few smaller stores like Maya Chocolate in Santa Barbara carries some of the bars. Monsieur Marcel in Los Angeles carries some of them. But if you want to find the entire line, it would be with Ronnie Sue Chocolates in New York.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to end the recording now. And thank you guys for tuning in to listen.